We are back on the death lineup. Brian is back from his vacation. How was the vacation?
Spain is a very good time. First time out of the continent. I've been out of the country a couple times, but never left North America. Europe's sweet, man. At least where I was, it felt just like the movies. Just like those really cool alleyways where it's like so much life between all those with like the cool looking apartments. And I don't know. The trip was very movie like, and I'm sure not all of Europe is like that. Maybe I'm sure we went to the good parts of Spain, the touristy spots. Actually, no, my stepbrother, he teaches English out there, so we went to Cordoba, Spain, and he kind of just took us under his wing and showed us around like we were locals. So we got like the touristy part because we landed in Madrid, hung out in Madrid for a couple days. Then we went to where my stepbrother was at, and we felt like more like locals walking in the city. Just literally is literally a walking drinking trip. Like it was like we start the day by walking somewhere. We get to like a little square, they call it, and then sit down at a table, eat, drink, get up, start walking. Oh my God, it's dinner time. Are you kidding me? Sit down, eat, drink again. And it's like, oh, we got to walk off the food. Just a lot of that. And it was a pretty fun trip.
Your mom sent me some photos of like some people who look like the KKK, but they were wearing like black. Like, what was that?
Yeah. So
I didn't understand it when she was trying to tell me what it was, but I was like, I didn't get it, what she was saying.
Semana Santa, I believe. So their Easter is like our Christmas. Like they go hard for Easter.
Okay.
It's like a whole week of festivities in Spain. And it was, I mean, they're super religious, super Catholic out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's they just wore that.
So it was like a religious thing.
It's a total religious like parade. It's a religious parade throughout the whole thing, and it looks like the KKK because I believe that we literally were watching. So my partner Danielle, she found a pretty funny video on TikTok of people from America like experiencing Semana Santa and seeing that and being like super uncomfortable. And we were watching the news a couple days later, and the reporter was like, "This is how I was kind of trying to translate because like she was saying some words I knew in Spanish, and she was basically saying like how Americans view this week versus how we view it is just completely different."
Yeah.
But yeah, I think isn't the KKK like I think she's explained that they're like Protestant. And I think the Protestants wore that too. Like, I don't even want to dive into it. I didn't want to take photos because I feel like that was a dangerous camera roll to have. But I swear to God, for those listening, like the people at the Semana Santa, imagine parades of people in the KKK getup. And you're like an American. And for the Spanish people, they're like cheering them on. And it's like, oh my God, super uncomfortable. So but it's not racist. It's a sign of religious, I don't know, just. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah,
all right.
Did it first.
For people, we'll talk some basketball now. But for people who are not used to this background, for me who are watching on video, audio people won't care. I got a new phone and I'm backing it up, and it wasn't ready. It wasn't ready for prime time. I even had to push Brian back a few minutes, and it still wasn't ready. So deal with my background, just my office and all my hats and my album covers and NBA Jam there in the background. Okay, so this is a big week, man. This is, if you remember when we started our show last year, it was right in the beginning of the playoffs. So this is now full circle for us. It's not Denver. The Warriors are not the favored seed. It's not a 3-6 matchup for the Warriors. It is the Kings, and it is flipped the other way around. The Kings are the 3 and the Warriors are the 6. So we'll preview it a little bit. You had sent me earlier that Plus Minus had done a podcast, and I haven't had a phone working, so I didn't even get to listen to it. But I've read through some previews. I've listened to some folks talk about it, and it kind of scares me as a Warriors fan that nobody is picking the Kings. This is kind of ridiculous.
Wasn't it like Bobby Marks or Mark Davis? One of the ESPN guys picked the Kings. It was one ESPN guy, and I almost got flashbacks to when we keep seeing that graphic of people, of the ESPN people picking the Warriors Mavericks series, and that always gets brought back up. I'm like, oh man, I'm getting like, it's too much Warriors love. outside of Kings fans, outside of my buddy Alex, and outside of Breece Hall, the running back for the New York Jets, I haven't seen and Bobby Marks, whoever it was on the ESPN. It's either Bobby or it's this guy named Mark, or I forget. But
I wonder if it's the guy who does the Kings play-by-play.
No, it wasn't Mark. That's the guy's name, Mark Davis, right?
I thought so.
Yeah, I don't think it was him.
Okay.
But yeah, just a lot of it's very. This is pretty cool that you did this.
Oh, you like the layout?
Yeah, I've never seen this.
Yeah, no, it's StreamYard for the video folks. I try to make it interesting, and for our clips, yeah, you can set the layout in creative ways. It's one of the new advancements in StreamYard. Since you've been gone, they released it, so you'll be. I can show you how to play with it if you want. But yeah. This is our Kings versus Warriors graphic here on the video part of the show. So are you? I guess the news out there is that Wiggins is back, and not only is he back, but supposedly has looked great. I don't think that they would have said anything but the fact that he looks great. If he did not look great, they would have still probably said he looks great. You don't want to give away any stuff, but I'm going to take them for their word. It sounds like he'll be able to play about 20 to 25 minutes. Not starting as of yet, but that's a good sign for the Warriors, because one of the keys to this series, and I was going to get your thoughts on this because you've watched a lot more Kings than I have, which is this very interesting clutch stat when it comes to Darren Fox. And NBA even has an award called the Clutch Award. And I heard Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo talking about how to vote for it. And they're like, well, how do we also vote for it? They just give us they just give us a list and we just sort by the rating. And I guess that's how we're supposed to pick the Clutch Award. But Darren Fox was, by the numbers, the best clutch player in the NBA this year. And my wonder is, how do the Warriors attempt to try and, I don't know if you can stop him because he's such a multifaceted scorer, but when it comes to the playoffs, the scoring goes down, the defense intensifies, the calls from the referees, they're a little bit, you're going to hear more of them in important spots. And I kind of wonder if you're watching, or you watching the Kings and the Warriors very well, what are they going to try and do to slow down De'Aaron Fox? Because I think he's kind of the key to this whole offense.
I think that they are. I just think that the Warriors have guys to throw at De'Aaron Fox that, in Wiggins, in GP2, in Kuminga. I'm not gonna lie, like watching De'Aaron Fox in the clutch, like he's legit. Like what he does, like I think I was actually just watching that game against the Clippers where it was just like that 176 to 175, whatever that final score was. And like De'Aaron Fox is just like scoring over Kawhi at will. And it's like Kawhi is supposed to be one of the greatest, ISO defenders, really, like in our generation and my generation. So I think De'Aaron Fox is legit. I don't know if there is stopping him in the clutch. I think that there is a way for, how do I say this properly? But I have been on a certain tune for this team for the entire season. I think that they're a good and fun team, but I think that I've been saying first round upset for them since the beginning of the season, or since I feel like got this number 3 seed. And now that my team's playing them, it's been pretty amplified. But I remember saying on this podcast that I thought that maybe I'd rather see the Phoenix Suns with Kevin Durant before I wanted to see the Kings. And I only said that though because I thought that KD's first game was going to be in the playoffs. I'm pretty sure I said that on the podcast. And if I had to revisit that take and it was still KD's first game going into the playoffs, I might do a little bit of thinking, but I might probably just take the Kings. It's just this Kings team. I think De'Aaron Fox is, he's kind of him in the clutch, like I just said. But I think them being in the clutch so many damn times, like he's like a volume clutch player. I've said it before that if you look at who are the top 5 clutch players, and I think it's just measured by points in the clutch of all time. It's of all time. It's this year's De'Aaron Fox. I believe it is last year's DeMar DeRozan. I believe it is last year's Joel Embiid. I believe there's who else is in? There's a couple more guys in there. But when I looked at this a couple months ago, it's like, okay, none of these guys got past the first or the second round.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have a high total of points in the clutch, it means that your team is playing a lot of close games. And the Kings play a lot of close games because they have a bad defense.
Yep.
Their coach, our guy, he's known to be more of a defensive-minded coach, but they just don't really have the talent or have the guys defensively to be better than what they are. I think they're 26th in the league in defense. So I think that the Kings have, had close games with a lot of bad teams this season. And I think that the Warriors should just, I think it's going to be really good for the Warriors that I feel like the Warriors sometimes when they're overdoing it on jump shooting and they're not going to the rim enough, although I think they should go to the rim, I almost feel like overdoing it on jump shooting, that strategy might even work against the Kings because they're just going to get so many good looks. And I don't feel like there's going to be a blowout game in this series. And if it is, I want to say it would come from the Warriors, but I genuinely don't know because, we've had our talks about the Warriors this season where it's when you go high on them, they show you low. When you go low on them, they show you high. And so I don't know. I feel like I have a lot of things in my mind about this team. I just listen to Light Years. I just listen to Plus Minus. I'm trying to listen to a Kings podcast with good old James Ham, who I usually respect, but had that crazy take about the Kings offense compared to the Warriors dynasty offense. That was, to be fair, taking a little bit out of context now that I heard him explain it. But still, he's like, it's like that stuff where you listen to someone talk about Jokic, and I feel like not Bill Simmons wasn't the target here, but there are people like kind of the nerdy media guys who are like, look at Jokic's VORP and look at all of his weird stats. It's like, no, dude, I'm watching hoop, and Embiid just cooked them 40-10.
Yeah.
I feel like James Ham was doing a little bit of that with that offense, like best offensive rating of all time, highest true shooting percentage, highest effective field goal percentage. Like, well, we had KD, we had KD and Steph on the same team.
It's hard when it's hard to correlate that stuff when the rules in the NBA seemingly change like every 2 or 3 years, and
exactly
defense gets harder because they want it to be harder, and foul, you can't do this. Back in the MJ days, you could hand check, right? And you could kind of keep your hand on the guy, on the offensive guy. And you can't do that anymore. So it's kind of a weird thing. And I think Anthony Slater in his preview piece called it offense on steroids. And he called those numbers pretty inflated, though. The Kings did have the second highest offense in the NBA by a good amount. I think Boston was second, but Boston was like a distant second. So some of that stuff is
Kings. You're saying the Kings being the best offensive rating in the NBA?
Yes.
Best offensive rating of all time.
Of all time.
Of all time.
But that's why the numbers are like they're on steroids. Because
you want to hear I think I could do the top 5 offensive ratings of all time off the top of my head.
It's like Dallas last year or something, or 2 years ago.
It's Kings this year. It's Nets 2 years ago with KD, Harden, and Kyrie playing like 10 games together. They were the number 2 offense of all time. Third is Boston. I think fourth is Philly this year. Boston and Philly this year. I think fifth might even be the New York Knicks this year. Like it's just that record gets broken almost every season.
It's pretty silly stat.
The Kings do have a good 1.5 over this Brooklyn Nets team, that from the 2020-2021 Brooklyn Nets team, which is second offensive rating of all time, which that's kind of impressive because you start looking down the list, it's only separated by 0.1 for each team, but the Kings kind of got them by 1.5 or something like that. But if you look at that list, it takes until that Bucks championship team to get to a championship team, and that's 10 or 12 teams down the list. So it's I think it should be reiterated that offense is great, but defense wins championships.
So here's another question, which is, the Warriors like to isolate whatever they think gives them the best way to win. So do you think that they are going to attack Darren Fox, kind of like I said, and slow him down? Or do they just want Harrison Barnes? You're not going to get yours. Malik Monk, you're not going to get yours. Keegan Murray, you're not going to get yours. And maybe we do let Fox cook a little bit, but we want to stop all the other stuff. There's usually a strategy and they're really good at finding what the right strategy is to win these games. Now, the coach who helped them find that right strategy is also on the other side now. But is there a weakness or a way that you think they're going to play this series, because it is a best of 7, and one of the tricks of this entire run for the Warriors is they may struggle early, but when they figure it out, they really figure it out. I
Mhm.
wonder what the figuring it out part in this Kings series is going to be for them if they do win the series.
I feel like they're going to do Harrison Barnes like they've done Aaron Gordon in the past, like they did Grant Williams last year, where it's like, I'm going to put Draymond on you and I'm going to keep you wide open, and you're going to ask yourself in your head mentally, like, why are they leaving me wide open? Shoot, miss. Oh man, were they right? Should they have left me wide open? And then you just keep going through that mental warfare in your head, and the next thing you know it, like, you're a good 3-point shooter who's not really shooting that well. Like Aaron Gordon is not bad enough of a 3-point shooter for us to have left him wide open as we did last season. Harrison Barnes, same thing. But if the Warriors know one thing, they've seen Harrison Barnes disappear in the playoffs.
Yep.
Draymond already doesn't totally like the guy, but I could totally see
Draymond doesn't like Harry B. Why? Because he didn't get invited to the wedding.
And there was something with like a contract extension that HB didn't pick up, right? That Draymond voiced. I think I heard that in Plus Minus today, maybe.
Oh, I see. I didn't listen.
Yeah, you didn't listen to it.
I'm bummed.
But I have a feeling that HB is the guy they pick on, and I feel like it might work, but I don't know. HB, it's been a lot of time since that finals.
Over the rookie, huh? Over Murray, just go.
Did you see Murray has the most 3-pointers made by a rookie.
That stat is also on steroids though, just because they shoot so many more.
Yeah, agreed. But he made like 200 something.
I mean, we kind of saw this one coming, right? Because when we were at the California Classic, we saw this coming. We're like, okay, he's for real. Like this isn't against NBA players, but this guy has game that should translate into the NBA, and we were right about that.
I don't know if I predicted him to break the record for rookies 3-pointers made though, but like it's an inflated stat. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's still. I wonder where he ranked on the season amongst all the 3-point made guys, because he's probably, dude, he shot it at like a 41% clip. Like he's a really good efficient shooter that maybe you can get him off his game just because he's not used to the bright lights, but I don't know. I feel like he's kind of meant for it, not necessarily meant for the bright lights, but I feel like he's not someone to shy away from that. But I think that's another huge point to this entire series, which we have yet to get into, is just the whole experience thing as a whole.
Oh yeah.
How does that factor in?
Well, and so save that, because that was going to be my next question, and I think that's probably where you're going to go. I want to talk about what you feel the Warriors' biggest strength is, and we'll take that first, and then we'll flip it on its head with the biggest worry for you. But let's start with the biggest strength. What is the biggest strength that they have? What are you most confident in this team being able to do in this series against Kings?
I think their biggest strength is kind of tied with either having we have the best player in the series, and that's usually a good sign. And the other 1A, 1B is that, our Stephen Curry's playoff minutes alone ties like all of the Kings players combined. So like, it's just, and then you have to add Klay to that. You have to add Draymond. Like I think Klay, Draymond, Iguodala, and Steph, if all their playoff minutes as individual players is higher than the Kings as a combined team. Usually the team who hasn't been to the playoffs, they don't make it very far. So, I think experience is also, the Warriors' greatest strength going into this series.
I think Klay has the most playoff games out of everybody.
Really?
He's like one ahead of Draymond, or maybe Draymond's one ahead of Klay. I think it's that way because Draymond got suspended for a couple games, and
we know Steph missed. Klay, the only one.
Steph is like 11 less, I think.
And the only one Klay missed that I can remember off the top of my head, it was the last game of the series against the Raptors.
Yeah. I think.
I mean, he played it. He technically played it.
Got hurt. Yeah.
So
that's a great point. I'm leaning toward that. If we are saying Darren Fox is going to get his, Steph is going to get his. And when you look at it that way, you go, okay, like that is now basketball these days is not just a one-on-one matchup, all the switching of the defense. But back in the day, an easy way to look at teams as you go, oh, well, they got Magic and the other team doesn't have Magic. So how are they going to stop the Lakers? Same with Michael, right? And Steph is kind of like Michael, Steph, LeBron, KD. Like those guys are so special offensively. And Giannis, right? When Giannis is in playoffs, you look at that team and you go, whatever happens, the Bucks are competing here. And that's why we can say the same thing about the Suns. Whatever happens, the Suns are competing here unless KD gets hurt. And I think that's what is going to have me swing to the Warriors is just if Steph is healthy, Steph against Darren Fox, I'm okay with. I actually love that matchup because it's like our best player against your best player. Well, our best player is an all-time great with 4 rings. And I think I live with that matchup. And then you sort of worry about everything else. Now, Sabonis, Sabonis is gonna, Sabonis is like their Draymond. I think that's how Mike Brown sort of explained it. It's like he's not exactly like Draymond, but he does a lot of the things that the Warriors ask Draymond to do. And so that automatically means he's a really smart player. And then it's about the other pieces. Like you go to war with Wiggins, you go to war with Clay, you go to war with Loon. And can you go to war with Keegan Murray as a rookie? Can you go to war with Malik Monk? And so that kind of it made me. I know it's a very simplistic way of looking at the series in that way, but ultimately, I think just having Steph, and then you look at the rest of those matchups after you've already won that point guard battle, and it's like, okay, this series makes a lot more sense to me when I look at it that way.
Yeah. If we want to do the whole ranking thing, it's Steph 1, you drop a couple tiers and then you start putting in the other players. So I feel like we don't even need to do it. Like that alone just should say some stuff.
What about biggest worry? What is your biggest fear during this playoffs?
My biggest fear is probably some of the stuff we stressed throughout the season with the turnovers and the lack of free throws. And whenever the Warriors play an opponent, that opponent seems to have more free throws. So I think some of the little things like that would be my biggest worry at the moment.
All right, this is what's going to give me nightmares. And this is what is going to keep me up at night. Not really. I don't have a problem falling asleep, but there's going to be a moment during this series. I'm almost sure of it. I hope it's fleeting and I hope it's not very often, but I'm going to sit there and I'm going to be in my mind. This is Warriors playoff basketball. This is much different than the regular season. And then they're going to play like they did during the regular season. And I'm just going to go, they can't turn it on. Like this is what we've seen all season long. Like these wide open 3-pointers for the other team. And Draymond throwing the ball out of bounds and Steph throwing left-handed hook passes that get intercepted. Like what's going on? Like that moment is going to happen and it's going to lead to a Kings run. But I hope those moments are few and far between and they can sort of, Kerr's going to call a timeout. Hey, settle down. We need to get back to what we do. Let's slow the game down a little bit. And, but that, I'm going to catch myself. Maybe I'll even count for our next podcast. I'll count them. How many times I feel like, oh, they are who we thought they were. One of those moments, And so I also want to give them the benefit of the doubt, though, because they're the defending champions. I think everybody has looked to this moment to say maybe regular season doesn't really matter as long as you get in. That's kind of what they were saying, when the Warriors were struggling. And if the Warriors prove that, at least in this round, then you're kind of like, okay, everybody was right. And that's what I hope as well, right? I hope that is the case. But so I'll count before our next podcast, and I'll tell you how many who we thought they were moments that I have during a game or two.
Yeah, and if you look at last season too, all of the Steph goes down, then Steph comes back, Draymond goes, like that whole thing where no one was really healthy. They didn't really have cohesion going into the playoffs. And then they got really the best opponent they could have gotten in the first round to kind of like warm up to, being that Denver Nuggets team without, Jamal, without MPJ. It was just kind of Jokic and Aaron Gordon trying to do what they can. And it obviously just like didn't work. Not to say the Kings or the Denver Nuggets, because that would be insanely disrespectful to what they've done this season, being the 3 seed and the best offensive rating of all time. But I feel like if you did allow the Warriors to choose a team, maybe out of at least the top 6, I think if they were at least out of the top 6, I think they're going with the Kings. And I mean, what do you think? Do you think they go with the Clippers?
If you're telling me Paul George isn't playing, I think they go Clippers, but I think the Kings would be number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you ask them who they prefer, Draymond might say, bring on the Grizzlies right now. We're going to have to face them anyway. Let's just get this over with when we're healthy and not tired.
Yeah, I think that with Paul George healthy, I would go Kings. With Paul George unhealthy, yeah, that's a good case. I maybe go Clippers. I just feel like that Clippers team, even though I think I would favor the Warriors, they just make it tough. All those switchable wings, kind of like a Boston Light. I feel like they just
I hate
make
watching
it tough.
Kawhi on the other team too. He's so hard to root against because he's so good and he just frustrates you and he has no emotion. He's not going to get in any arguments. He's not going to get into any fights. He's just going to play like a robot. But yeah, I think you're right. Now you said no disrespect to Denver Nuggets. You meant last year's Denver Nuggets. You didn't mean this year.
No, I meant no disrespect to this year's Sacramento Kings. I must have just been speaking too fast.
Or maybe I didn't misunderstood.
Yeah, no disrespect to this year's Kings. You know, like I feel like I did a pod yesterday on the BAM with Obi, and we were just kind of going through it, and I was saying things, and it's like, okay, there's definitely like bias in what I'm saying, but at the same time, I said what I said on this podcast. Like I said all these things about this Kings team before I knew that they were playing the Warriors. I said all this stuff, and when they became the 3rd seed. I don't know how many months ago that was, but
we had a fun conversation because we played 2K, and one of your friends who I got to coach against when I was coaching with JJ, Marshall, who AKA Bebo. I was joking with him like 2 months ago, going like, "Are you going to be sad when the Warriors beat the Kings in the first round of the playoffs?" Right? Like that was kind of the joke. And it just so happened that it came out that way. So
yeah, and I think just looking at this Kings team is like I think the idea of them going a couple rounds, or even like the idea of them winning the championship, would just break all of my basketball like truths or just things that I lived by, just like knowing in the basketball world, which is defense really matters in the playoffs. What's the lowest defensive rating a team's won the championship? What's the lowest defensive rating a team's gotten through a couple rounds with? Like I think defense genuinely matters that much, and I think not having the best player in the series, I think that's a big deal too. And I don't think the Kings are really going to have the best player in really any of the series they face if they go further and further into the playoffs. There was another one too that experience. If this is your first year in the playoffs as a unit, most of your best players haven't really seen it. Domantas Sabonis, sure, but that Pacers team was getting first round booted about every single season. I think that matters as well. I think that's like a fundamental belief I have, is that defense matters, experience matters, and having the best player in the series matters. And the Kings have none of those. Mm-hmm. So I think that, again, no disrespect to the Sacramento Kings, I think they are one of those teams. I think they said it in plus minus where it's like the Warriors, all plus minus guys have Warriors in 6. That's what I have too, before I even heard the podcast, which is great. I have that on record already. But they think that the Warriors are going to leave this series like they left that Memphis Grizzlies series, which is, like that team kind of like they're on the rise. And I think that's what you could see from the Sacramento Kings with Darren Fox being their best player, of how good he's been this season. All NBA 3rd team guy, probably. Domantas Sabonis, again, all NBA 3rd team guy. I think they just need one more guy. And I believe they have the assets, and I think they have the means to go do it. And I just don't think this is their year. And of course, since they're playing my team in the playoffs, I'm going to make sure that happens in the first round, that it's not their year.
I was looking at the defensive rating numbers, and the Sacramento Kings would be the worst defense by this rating that the Warriors will have played in the playoffs. And if they advance, the next worst would be actually Denver. And then the next worst, no, actually the Clippers, and then Denver, and then the Warriors. And then right under the Warriors are Oklahoma City and the Lakers. So in the West, outside of the Phoenix Suns and the Memphis Grizzlies, everybody's kind of in the same defensive rating, plus or minus a point or two here and there. So not until, you get to the Western Conference Finals, or if the Lakers, or if Memphis probably beating the Lakers, but that will be an interesting series.
I have the upset.
No, I mean, I would not be surprised. But after watching that Minnesota game, which we'll get to in a second, I was like, I'm not so sure about that. But yeah, Memphis and Phoenix are good defensively. But other than that, the Warriors are right in the mix with everybody else, and which is kind of weird because I think if we didn't have the numbers in front of us, we would have probably thought the Warriors were closer to the Kings defensively than they were to the middle of the pack.
I think that's what I thought too. Obviously, then looking at the numbers, that was false. But if you do filter it by the last since GP2 came back, they're tied number 1.
Oh wow,
ain't that a thing, huh? And they haven't had Wiggins.
Wow.
So I think that my hot take is that the Warriors have the best defense in the West. Once everyone's back, once you get a couple games in, it's going to be like, okay, this was the championship defense from last year. You don't have Otto, but you now have Kuminga. So
no Bielitsa. That's what I've been saying.
That's been no Bielitsa. That's been a point I feel like I have been pushing on this podcast the entire season.
You've definitely been pro Kuminga 100%.
Not just pro Kuminga, but just pro the rotation that they're rolling out. And I feel like you've had some good points where it's like, there is like an argument to be made that that was like a maybe they had, I don't know if that was your wording, but it was something along the lines of like maybe they had a kind of more, I don't know about easier is the right word, but favorable path to the finals last season. But just looking at the rotation, it's the same 7 guys: Jordan Poole and GP off the bench. That's 7. 8 now you add Kuminga and 8 DiVincenzo and 9 Kuminga. Like that's, in my opinion, from a player perspective, is more talent than what you had in last year's playoff rotation, where with that, instead of Kuminga and DiVincenzo, it was Bielitsa and Otto Porter junior So I just think it matters that your first 7 guys is the same. And the Boston Celtics last year were just running 7 guys in the finals at some games. So it's like at least usually go to 8. I feel like Kerr's going to go 9 in the first round. But I think it's a really, really solid 9. I just feel like, there's been some weird hiccups. There's champagne and campaigning midway through the season, but they're just like taking it easy. But what I do think is important, although it was against the JV teams, it feels like, but I think closing the series or closing the season on a 3-game winning streak,
5-1.
If you go back, so let's go to Houston. They won a Houston game, then they went and won that Dallas game, then they went and won that Philadelphia game, and then the Timberwolves game is right after that I go to. And they just have a brain fart to end the game where Draymond just gives it to Kyle Anderson, Karl-Anthony Towns transition 3. But to start that possession, like Steph did something too that was a little weird. But what I'm saying is that they don't have one brain fart, they win that game. So let's just I'm not going to count it as a win, but let's just say, Minnesota a win.
They go out Timberwolves the Timberwolves in that game.
I had a take actually that I feel like the Timberwolves sometimes can put a spell on other teams and just be like, okay, you guys are going to play like us. You guys are just going to do this drunk basketball thing. Because I think when we all realized it as like a national basketball fan base, like it was against the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves last season, that playoff series, like, man, both these teams just look like idiots out there. And then you go into the Grizzlies and the Warriors, and it felt like a lot less dumb IQ errors by the Memphis Grizzlies. Do you agree? Like, it felt like that Grizzlies team that we watched against the Timberwolves was a little more made smarter decisions against the Warriors. And I feel like the Timberwolves just kind of make teams dumber sometimes. And
that's an interesting take in that they play a style of basketball that, isn't super efficient, but they're successful at it. So you almost kind of play down to their level a little bit. They lull you to sleep a little bit.
They lull you. That's the word I think I'm looking for. Again, that's my thing against the Warriors. Like, when the hell does Draymond make that dumb of a decision to just give it to Kyle Anderson with, and then that whole thing happens, Karl-Anthony Towns transition 3.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my point with the Lakers too, is it felt like, that was just some really weird basketball going
that was
on.
LeBron, but there was no one to hit that 3 when he gave the ball away to them.
Yeah, that could have been. Yeah, that could.
All right, I'm with you. I say 6, though. If it does get, look, the Warriors could clearly lose this series. They could. The Kings could grow up right before our eyes, and the Warriors, somebody could get hurt, whatever. I expect the Warriors to win. I will say, if this thing goes 7 and they're like that is not good for round 2.
No,
Like they
you
need to
don't know.
take care of business because what is going to be awaiting them is a really big matchup. And last year that Grizzlies matchup in round 2, that was just as hard as that Celtics series was for them. And the Celtics series probably a little bit harder just because of the bigger stage. But that took a lot out of them, so they need to be ready and be prepared. And the earlier you get a team out and you have a little bit of time to rest, that's beneficial for them because they are the older team, right? They do need to kind of regroup a little bit, and more so than some of these younger teams.
Do you know anyone going to the game 1 as a Warriors fan? Any Warriors fans making the travel to
Good
Golden 1?
question. I don't. I'm not really a big fan of Twitter these days, so I've been kind of staying off. So it's possible that people in my timeline are going, but yeah, I haven't seen.
So just really quick tidbit is that I feel like I've been seeing a lot of Golden 1's going to look 60-40, Kings fans, Warriors fans, maybe 50-50, and now never 50-50, but like 70-30 even. And I feel like game 1, just because of how historical it is, 17-year postseason drought, I feel like only Kings fans are making that purchase. Like mostly Kings fans are making that $900 purchase.
You better hope, because you need that home court advantage, man. Right?
Yeah. So my point is that I personally know 4 Kings fans who have made that ticket purchase, who are going to the game, and I'm like feel like I see a lot of Warriors stuff on my Twitter timeline. I haven't seen one person say they're going to that game. So not to say that it's going to be a 100-0 Kings fans, Warriors fans, but I feel like we're overblowing how packed Golden 1 might be with Warriors fans, specifically on game 1, because I think game 1's just a historical, like we're here, we're in the playoffs. We finally did it, guys. This is something I've been waiting for 17 years of my entire life. I just wanted to see it happen in person. And I think that if you have that amount, it's not going to be as hostile of an environment as it was in Boston, where people are shouting, Draymond's a B word, this and that. But I think that it's going to be just super like loud, just noisy. We're going to hear it from our TVs, how it's going to like, the gain's just going to like blow out or something if we're watching it from home. And my point is that with that type of noise level, if the Warriors are able to go out there and win game 1, I think the series is over. I think it's shark sees blood in the water, but I don't think that the Warriors are going to win game 1. That would be my prediction. But
so they're going to have to win 4 to the next 5 in order for you to get them out in 6.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's switch gears and let's just call the rest of the playoffs here. Obviously, there's no 8 seed yet because those games are going to be figured out on Friday in the play-in. The Lakers beat the Timberwolves in a really not a great fourth quarter, that's for sure. But the Lakers prevailed. We talked a little bit about it already, just the experience. LeBron, Anthony Davis, champions, they pulled that game out. Some dumb stuff from both of them as well late in the game, but they pulled it out. So they're the 7 seed playing Grizzlies, and we are awaiting the Thunder against the Timberwolves, and the winner of that gets the Nuggets. Man, the Thunder were spry last night. I just figured, Pelicans a little bit more grown up. They got Brandon Ingram. Ingram's going to close this game, and nope, didn't happen. Thunder win. I was impressed. I still don't know. They're probably facing the Nuggets. Might be the worst team unless they just get Jokic in pick and roll after pick and roll after pick and roll after pick and roll. But they don't have a center, and he's one of the top 2 best centers in the NBA. So I don't think that bodes very well for them.
I don't think it goes well for them either. That's why I think I want the Timberwolves to play the Nuggets, because although I think the Nuggets will still take care of the Timberwolves, at least I feel like Jokic gets a little bit of butt cheek sweat having to go
Rudy
up against like Gobert,
beat him up a little bit.
Yeah, so I think that's what I want from a Warriors fan perspective. I think that's what I want from an NBA fan perspective. But if the Thunder did advance, that's all the makings of what the Memphis Grizzlies were. They beat the Memphis Grizzlies 2 or 3 years ago, beat the Warriors in the play-in, and they advanced as like a 9 or 10 seed to go play the Jazz in the first round, and they got their butts kicked. But guess what? They came back the next year and played the Warriors. Oh, Yeah, right. They that was the next year they went and won the first round. So that's like upward progression. They win the play-in, they lose the first round. The next year, they avoid the play-in, they win the first round, they lose the second round. This year, they're supposed to get to the Western Conference Finals if that's the upward progression, but I don't think that's just going to happen. But I think that Thunder team has all the makings. If they were to go beat the Timberwolves, it's like, all right, we're starting our we're starting our Memphis Grizzlies thing. So I think that would be exciting to see from a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander fan perspective, because he is a bucket.
On the other side in the East, the Bulls beat the Raptors and the Heat lost to the Hawks. I was kind of surprised about that one. So the Hawks advance and they're the 7th seed. They go up against the Celtics. They're probably going to get swept. And so whoever wins between Bulls and Heat, they face the Bucks. If I think the Bulls, maybe they get a game. Heat could probably get a game too, but it'll be in different ways. I wouldn't be worried about either team if I was the Bucks. But so those are going to be we'll figure out exactly what happens on a Friday, the final play-in games. But let's look at the rest of the playoffs, and let's just go for the first round. It's kind of hard to, think about, who's going to advance and who's going to play who. So let's just go over the first round. You give me your thoughts on the series and who you expect to win. So let's start with Grizzlies Lakers. You just said you're picking the upset. You're going with the vets. You're going with the OG. The OG beating the Ja Morant-led Memphis Grizzlies. Why?
I think that when you look at a little bit of what that Lakers Timberwolves game were, I know you don't really want to take anything from that, nor do I. But if you do look at Cat got into foul trouble, right? And it felt like LeBron and AD were just completely aware of how many fouls he had. LeBron trying to take a charge on him. LeBron trying to just do the vet savvy things to try and get him that 6th foul to get him out of the game, because they knew once he was out of the game, they were just going to run away with that game. And we know, us having the Warriors having those bouts with the Memphis Grizzlies, what's something that's always a key factor against that team? Jaren Jackson Jr.'s foul count. I think that, LeBron and AD can savvy vet him into getting, into foul trouble pretty easily there. And I think that it's going to be really tough for the Lakers to win, because I think that if LeBron or Anthony Davis go out for one game, I think the series is over. And the Lakers are pretty injury prone as a team because of age, just because of Anthony Davis being an injury prone player in general. But yeah, I think a lot of things have to go right for the Lakers to win the series. I think it's going to happen, and I think it's going to happen in 7. On the Grizzlies side, I think it's Jaren Jackson Jr. being their second most important player, being a fun direct matchup for AD. I just think AD is going to get him into foul trouble, and I think that once that happens, they don't have Brandon Clark, they don't have Steven Adams to fall back on. They have Jaren Jackson Jr. and Xavier Tillman, and after
that's the biggest fear, I think, for the Grizzlies. Though there's gonna be 2 games where the Grizzlies can just get out and run, and they're gonna get out and hit 3-pointers, and the Lakers are gonna look old, and LeBron's gonna do the thing where he starts pouting and he's mad at people and stuff. And I think they're gonna get 1 or 2 games like that. So if they do, like, let's say they get 1, then that's 6 games of whether the Lakers can just out vet savvy them. And it's not like not like the Grizzlies didn't get a good experience last year against the Warriors, so they know what it takes. And they can always have that thing in their back pocket. Well, if Ja didn't get injured, maybe we actually win that series. So I think it's going to be a great dogfight. Here's my worry. If I'm the Warriors, my worry is Memphis beats the Lakers and they get so much confidence and experience out of that series, and they kind of get the momentum. So whatever it is, I hope the Lakers make it a rock fight. I hope LeBron slows the game way down and makes, and just all of a sudden Dylan Brooks fouls out. All of a sudden Bane's like, how did I get 5 fouls? And, you just go through that thing, because I think the biggest upside is the Grizzlies. If the Grizzlies can figure it out and beat them and sort of grow up, man, they become scary. So I'm hopeful that the Lakers win, because I think the Warriors have a better chance at beating the Lakers than I think they have at beating the Grizzlies. But they don't match up well against the Lakers either at the same time. But yeah, that's just that's my take. I think the Grizzlies win, but I think your pick is fair as well.
Yeah, I think the Warriors fans should just hope for a long series. They should hope for 7 games for that, for the Lakers versus the Grizzlies. I think that should be like the one thing we all hope for.
All right, so we already talked Warriors, Kings, Suns, Clippers.
So we did an episode on the BAM where we all ranked our most exciting or best potential first round matchups for the entire league, and this was my number one pick: Phoenix Suns versus the Los Angeles Clippers. I feel like all the wings, the Clippers having those two-way guys that can guard Devin Booker and KD. Yeah, well, that's out the window because Paul George isn't going to play for the entire series. So something that I was super excited to see, I feel like, is just like completely gone, and I've been really sad about it for the past couple days. I think the Suns are just gonna outclass them. Yeah, because I mean, I think Law Murray of The Athletic is saying no PG. Some of the fans think Game 3. I'm probably gonna side with Law Murray at the moment. But yeah, if no PG, I think the Suns get it done in 5.
That was gonna be my pick, but I think Kawhi is gonna get 2 wins at least. I think he's going to be up for this matchup, and he knows that for them to have a chance with no Paul George, he's going to have to put the team on his back. And I think he's going to get 2 wins, but ultimately it's a 1-on-3 when it comes to superstar battle here. And
2.
Oh, you're not counting CP?
No.
Yeah, I mean Booker, like, theoretically, always you look far in advance, and I look at Warriors Suns and I go, okay, Kevin Durant's just going to get his. It's impossible to stop him. CP, since the Warriors won a championship, has never beat them. And then you got to figure out, okay, so what do we do? Well, I think you go all out and try and stop Booker no matter what. And the Warriors have struggled against Devin Booker. So I think Phoenix is really scary for the Warriors too. But defensively, they are not as scary against the Warriors because they don't have Mikal Bridges and their depth is bare. And so it's really like you're going to have these guys defending Steph. And again, it's like, nobody, you're winning that point guard battle no matter what. So I think the Suns are an interesting battle for the Warriors too. But not going to say that they can get there because they're going to have to go through 2 series to even see them if the Suns come out of there. All right, Nuggets. I don't think the Nuggets have problems with either team, but
yeah.
You think either team could get a game from them?
I think the Timberwolves can get a game. I think that's it though.
All right, on to the other side. Celtics, Hawks. I already said I think Celtics
it's a sweep
in the Hawks.
It's a sweep, 100%.
All right, Sixers and Nets. I'm not as intrigued with this series as a lot of people are because, again, if we go back to this best player, like Embiid is such a tremendous player, and the Nets are kind of a bunch of pretty decent players who kind of fit in this interesting way. But I don't see them upsetting the 76ers in this series.
No, there was kind of like a thing last year on how like it was like a joke that the nerd analysts of the NBA were picking the Raptors to beat the Sixers in round 1 because the Raptors had all these switchable wings who would give the Sixers fits on the other end. And it's kind of a similar deal with this Brooklyn Nets team. Is I think the Brooklyn Nets can make it difficult, but I still think the Sixers will take care of them. Like I think the Sixers can take care of them in like 5, but like let's say all 5 of those games are within like 5 points. It was kind of like how Boston and Brooklyn series played out last year, where Boston swept them, but I don't think Boston won a game by more than 8 points. It was all pretty close.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling that I would probably go Sixers in 5.
I think 5 too, but man, we may learn something about Mikal Bridges here in this series because I think people look at some of those numbers that he put up and they go, regular season, people are kind of tanking, but who knows? Maybe he is like this top 25 guy and we learn a lot about him. That would be fun to watch.
That would be kind of cool.
All right. This one is, I have a feeling about this series, but I don't know if people think that the Knicks are really going to extend this thing. Where are you with Cavs and Knicks?
So I thought this series was I think my 4th. We did like a draft for the most interesting first round series that you could pick, and this was my 4th pick, so probably like the 16th most interesting series that we could see like within 10 to 16. I thought this was interesting because I feel like the Cavs best defensive rating in the NBA. You know, you got Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo picking Evan Mobley over Jaren Jackson Jr. as the defensive player of the year, which is going to cause a ruckus if that happens. But
I loved it, by the way.
it was fun. It was entertaining. But you know, I think to say all that is that I feel like the Cleveland Cavaliers on paper match up against a lot of good teams in the East, a lot of those top heavy teams with the bigs, because the Eastern Conference, when KD was there, even in Boston, it was a pretty wing and center dominated conference, whereas the West had all the good guards. Now KD moving over to the West, it's still the Eastern Conference. You have to go through Jason Tatum, you have to go through Giannis Antetokounmpo, and you have to go through Joel Embiid, all guys who are wings or big guys. And I feel like the Cavs defense matches up well against those teams. I thought that the Knicks were the one team that actually matched up well against the Cleveland Cavaliers. But Jalen Brunson, who's going to guard him? Is it going to be Okoro? Do you want Okoro playing that much to begin with? But I heard Julius Randle might not even like. There's like
what is
question
going
marks
on
about
there?
his availability. If he misses, I mean, they lose. So
yeah, that's crazy. I don't even know what the injury was.
I don't know his injury at all either. I don't even know what happened.
Yeah, that's bad. That's bad for them.
I thought there was an upset potential if Randall played and was healthy, but now I'm starting to think that, you know, there's the Cavs are going to go to the next round. And the thing about the Cavs, though, like I was saying, like it wouldn't totally surprise me. Like if you told me the Cavaliers beat the Boston Celtics in like this gut wrenching 7-game series, like I don't know if I would think it's like completely out of someone's mind to think that. But at the same time, I also didn't think it was completely out of someone's mind to think that the Knicks could take care of the Cavs. I just feel like it was very matchup based. The Cavs like present some difficult matchups to some of the best teams. You look at the regular season record against the Celtics. I think it was 3-1. I think the Cavs took them 3-1, and I think everyone was healthy for all those matchups. So
there's something similar with this Cavs team and the Kings in that they're young as well. So there's some proving ground stuff in this series. Now, I don't know if there is still anything about going into Madison Square Garden because the Knicks haven't been good in a long time. But, you know, there are some bright lights, and this is the biggest series that the Cavaliers have played since LeBron left. So there's some, you know, there's definitely some pressure there for them. And then, you know, I don't think either team, actually, I'll say Bucks in 5, no matter who they play in that Eastern Conference for a first round 1-8.
Yeah, if it's against the Bulls, I'm not going to watch a game because it literally just happened last year, and it took DeMar DeRozan having like a 50 ball for them to win a game, and they only got one. I think if it's the Miami Heat, you know, they've seen each other a couple times, you know, once in, I think it was the semifinals of the bubble season, and the Bucks were supposed to take care of them, but Miami won. But the next year, the Bucks were the first, they saw each other in the first round, and the Bucks, I think, like swept them. Still, I feel like I'd rather see Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo versus Giannis than I would see Giannis versus DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. I still think the Bucks take care of. I think Bucks versus Heat goes to 5. Bucks versus Bulls goes to 4.
All right, now, if the Warriors don't make it to the NBA Finals, who do you think is the next best opportunity?
It's probably easily the Suns versus the Bucks.
So that's what you're taking. Yeah, I mean, Bucks and Celtics is going to be really good again. I don't know why, even though Middleton is still not playing very well. So it's, I know they didn't have him last year and now they do. So that's a little bit of a difference. So I'm not sure exactly why last year isn't going to happen again if we believe that the Celtics are on the incline. But, there is something with Marcus Smart didn't have as good of a season. I could see that. They do have Brogdon. So that is about as even as a series as I think you're going to get in this entire playoffs, as if it's Bucks Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. I will probably lean Bucks as well, just because Giannis seems like he's a little bit more of a man on a mission. But that's going to be, that might be even better than whatever the finals turns out to be, is that series.
Yeah, I just think Giannis is the best player in the world. So I think that Giannis is going to take care of the Celtics. Not take care of them, but win. I think Warriors versus Suns, though, like that would be like an insane. That would break records, probably ratings.
From a public perspective, that's what the NBA wants. They want this is how it. I mean, it's already been great for the matchups for the NBA because you have Warriors Kings, and that's going to be a really good TV matchup. But the second round, NBA wants Warriors Lakers because it'll break
100%.
It'll break whatever the recent second round records are. And then
what do you think they want more in the Western Conference Finals, though, if they had their choice, LeBron or Steph versus KD?
I
think they might go LeBron.
I would maybe lean Warriors, but I mean, it's you can't go wrong with either, right?
Yeah, it's a win-win.
There's a little bit more drama, I think, if it's the Warriors than if it is the Lakers. But
I agree.
Either way, it's perfect for them. But the Suns are going to have to get past the Nuggets, and the Nuggets have not played great in the last 15 games or whatever, but they played really well in that first 60 65 games. So are they the team for the first 80% of the season, or are they the team for the last 20% of the season?
I think a lot of people are just saying drop coverage Jokic.
Yep.
KD's just going to kill that. Devin Booker's just going to kill that. CP3 is just going to kill that, and it might be wraps.
Maybe. But you have to think, if we think it's that easy, that the Nuggets have to have an answer to that, right? They have to have a plan to counter that, and how do they do it, and what are ways that they do it. So they got to be thinking about it for sure.
Yeah.
All right. What do you want to do? Do you want to go Monday night? Do you want to go Saturday?
I think we should go after like away games. I'd be interested in that, because I feel like for the home games, I might try to go like to a bar or something.
Yeah. No, that works. Well, I mean, we could go Saturday and Monday, or we could just wait till Monday. I'm fine either way. But one of the two games we should do a post game for sure.
Yeah. Maybe we say we write it down in pencil right now for Saturday.
Okay. All right. All righty. So Warriors, Kings, 5.
What's your prediction?
For the West and the East?
Warriors. No, for the Warriors. What'd you say? Did you say your Warriors Kings? What was your prediction? How many games?
I said Warriors in 6, but
okay, that's what I said too.
I would not be surprised if this went all 7. The Warriors don't generally go 7 games unless they're behind. They don't really get ahead in a series and then like let up, except in the infamous one in 2016. But they usually have it figured out, and then they just shut the door. So 7 may not be the smart pick unless the Kings get out to a big lead and the Warriors have to come back. Then you're talking 7.
What I've noticed picking these games is that not a lot of series really go to 7 games. So it's like it's more likely that it's like 6 or 5. I think for the first round, I just have Lakers Memphis going to 7. Yeah, I think that's all I have going to 7 out of the entire first round. If Paul George comes back, Clippers and Suns are going to 7.
You think he comes back though? Is there a chance?
No. There might be a chance, but I don't think he's coming back.
All right. We're done here. Welcome back. And if you decide to move to Spain, we're gonna have some weird times of doing this show. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. For Bri, I am a Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.